Hey guys, how's it going? I got a call from my neighbor, and she was having a hard time getting her snowblower running, and couldn't get the plug on it, and when she finally did, the starter was just making a bunch of noise. And she called me, and I went over, and you could see it, but the two of the bolts on the bottom, one was missing, one was loose, so I went and put those in there, got the crank and start. After I got the crank and start, just kind of ran it through its paces, and I found that the drive is no good. It barely wants to pull itself along. So I said, you got bigger issues than that are going to be addressed. And she had a roommate, and the roommate used the machine all of last year and didn't have any idea that there was a problem with it. So I figured I'd turn the camera on, and we'll make a little video of more than likely replacing the drive disc that's in it. And let me get her in the garage and we'll see what we got. So I took the machine and I put a pair of vice grips on the fuel line. There's no fuel shut off on it. This machine probably has about an inch of fuel left in the tank, so I was able to flip it forward without worrying about it coming out of the gas cap. But again, there's no fuel shut off on the line, and it would still, if it had a lot of gas in it, it would want to feed the carburetor. So that's the reason for the vice grips on the fuel line. So it's sitting on a rubber mat on the bucket. And start getting the tires off out of the way. They just got bail type clips, and hopefully the tires come off and they're not too rusty. That one's getting a little chalky. I have to drive that one off a little bit. That'll get lube when I put it back together. It's gonna need some lube right now. So moved you over to the side that's fighting me. I'm gonna take my knee, kind of push it up against the wheels to get the slack of the axle pushing outward. Then I'm going to try tapping the axle in against that play to get it to get the wheel off. Going about an inch or two. There we go. These machines are not very well lubricated from the factory. Definitely runs into that issue that you see right there. All right, so now I'm going to go remove. I think we got 4 screws on the belly pan. Let's get those out of the way and get into the trans and see what it looks like. Let's get that pan off of there. It's 3/8. Lots of rubber. Lots of mess. Oh boy. You guys are like, what? Let me show you. That's your drive disc right there. And it is missing about 90% of the rubber going around it. You can kind of see right there's a little bit, but what I'm more concerned about is how much it chewed up the plate. Looks like they kind of ran it in one spot and just gave her all. Looks like it was probably about mid-gear, 3rd gear or so. A lot of times what happens is you could run them in a tall gear, and you had a snowbank at the end of the driveway. You could run it in the tall gear, but it's like slipping a clutch in your car. It'll work, but it won't work well, and it more than likely what happened was it overheated the disc. From driving it in that high gear, instead of putting it in, say, 1st and letting it not slip, it chewed itself up. So we may have an issue with this. It feels pretty rough. It's kind of like like a brake rotor on a car. The pads went down so far it chewed into it. But we'll have to work with that at its own capacity. Alright, so let me get set up so we can kind of get this shaft out of there and repair what needs to be repaired. We gotta grab some light and kind of get a better look at what's happening on there. So essentially what we want to do is remove that shaft that is sitting on and walk it out through the bearing assemblies. I believe we should be able to clear through the right side. Is kind of looking the best way to go. We're probably gonna have to tap one of the two pins out. There's a pin right there, right about 2 inches to the left of the disc, and there's one right there. So I'm gonna probably say remove that one and slide everything off to the left hand side, slide the X out through that side. So let me get something to tap the pin out, and then we'll also start removing that hardware. It's already missing a nut on one of those. Let's see how we make out. Might blow it out with compressed air first too to kind of clean it up. I'm just kind of looking it over and trying to figure out why that drive disc got so beat up so fast. Probably a better avenue of looking at it now. So this is the clutch. You pull in, you grab the lever up top. You can kind of see what it looks like is the fork, the shift fork, right there was running into the disc and digging into it also. So that explains why that got so chewed up like it did. So this one's a little different from what I'm used to seeing. I may or may not have to pull this shaft out of the way, but we're going to work on just removing this shaft first and see if that works for us. And if not, we'll get this one out of our way to get the assembly up and out. So I'm going to go work on getting those bearings out of the way. Probably show you what I'm looking at, huh? See if we can set you up. So now I'm looking at it, trying to get that whole axle out of there. So that pin's going to have to come out. If I want to drive that whole axle out, that's going to be in our way. So I'm going to go get a punch and a hammer and tap that guy out of our way. So tap that pin out of there. So we catch it too. And that's just a stop for the drive disc. So now that drive disc should be able to go slide right out of there. Everything's real gummy on this machine. Ran into a keyway, I believe is what's stopping us. So there's a key sprocket right there. If I had to do it again, I'd probably drive it the other way. Let me see if I can go tap that key out of there and get the axle shaft the rest of the way out. Let's see if I can get a pair of vice grips on it and wiggle that out. Try it up high. There we go. Alright, we're good. Now that collar that's holding the drive disc has washers on each side of it, so they're going to come off. And now, hopefully there's enough room to get the whole assembly out of there without removing this. If I move the shift fork, I go the other way. It's gonna tease us the whole way. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna do, probably instead of just taking that out, I might just split it right where it is. I'll probably take the nuts off right there. I'll take the drive disc off right where it's standing. So that just has three 7/16 rather. Nut and bolt combinations. I also put a witness mark on the inside of it. See that black line right there? Just for the orientation, because unfortunately I went with the part number and the serial number of the machine and ordered a new disc. And they gave me one that's about twice the diameter. I think it's for the later machines or the next series up. So I'm gonna have to go run. So while it's not fresh in my mind, that's why I put that witness mark there. So I got to go run back, which is in town. It's not that big of a deal. But again, that would be an easy reassembly. We would just go put that right back on there the way it was and reassemble. Get that out of there now. That's how it was. And the other thing is too, I want to look while I'm there and see if they have the drive plate available. If not, we're going to have to clean up this one the best as possible. So I'm going to take a little intermission. I'll be right back in a second. I look for some parts. And there's the one they gave me, and there's one we need. Slight difference. And we wrote the part numbers back down again. We'll go chase it, see if we can get the correct stuff. And a quick trip to the store. We got the correct one. Here's a slight difference. And they did have the drive plate in stock, so we're going to go pull that out. And this is quite expensive, just shy of 50 bucks. If the one that's in there, if I'm able to turn it down on the lathe, maybe clean it up a little bit easily, we'll go with that. If not, we're just going to throw it right in there and replace that. So on to. So I doubt I'm going to be able to get you, me, and the camera all up in there at the same time to show what's going on, but there's a snap ring right there holding that to the bearing. So I'm going to work on removing that clip, and I should be able to pull the drive disc plate right up out of there. So use a pair of snap ring pliers to get it out of the groove. Now I'm just kind of working its way down. There you go. Should be able to lift that out of there now. Or maybe not. After I got the clip off, I just ended up having to put a pry bar on each side of it and press it, walk it off evenly on each side, and it came off. It's a bit of a press fit, but it's not, you know, pressed on there. So I'm able to get that off of there. And kind of looking at the surface. I don't know, I might chuck it in the lathe just for shits and giggles, and we'll see what we get. But I have a feeling we should probably just replace it.
So I bought this mill drill for my mobile trailer, and I haven't had a chance to play with it other than do the repairs I needed to. So I figured it'd be probably a good time to see if we can clean up that disc and run this machine at the same time. And see if it's even possible or even worthwhile for the future. Anyway, so I'm going to go, I'm not going to run it any further, but I'm just going to run through it one more time and see if we get a little smoother finish. Too bad it doesn't have a power feed.
So we did a second pass on that. Again, I didn't go any further, but probably still took off another 5 or 6 thou. Probably took 30 thou off altogether. It looks pretty good. I'm going to run a piece of 150 over it. Figure we'll spin it up and see if we can just kind of maybe smooth out any kind of rings going across from one to the other, because again, it wasn't power feed. Try wrapping that on a piece of wood and doing it so it's more of a flat surface. I got a piece of steel. I think we can go with that. So I kind of like it. I think that should work out fine. I came back with a little flapper disc and just nipped the little tit in the middle of it. It was sitting a little proud, so I wanted to knock that off. The only thing that's different from the finish of the new one is it's more of like a sandblasted base to it, but I don't think it should make much of a difference. I think we should be able to drive in that pretty good. And it seems like there's enough meat on there where we're not going to have an issue with warping anything. It's kind of like cutting rotors on your car. So let's get that back up inside there and get her all back together and see how we function. So I got that back in there, and the clip is put back on underneath. That was a little bit on the fun side. So now we got to go about getting that guy and that guy back together. So I'm going to go do that. off camera. It's just basically 3 screws, and we're going to start reassembling the assembly back all over again. So the disc is bolted back on, but before I slide the axle in, it's got a bunch of crud and rust on it. So I want to just take a second and hit it with a wire wheel. We'll clean up the crap that's on it, and then we'll reassemble it and lube it afterwards. See if we can get that all back together now. Trying to get the hub on there with the washers. That's when you need 3 fingers. 3 hands. You got plenty of fingers. Let's get that one started on the bottom. Let's get the top one. So close. Swear word here. Yeah. Finally, there you go. The bottom's in there. So let's get the bearing housing back on. And without trying to trash everything, let's see if we can get the shaft back in. So what I need to do now is put the key back on for the drive sprocket. So I'm going to go tap that back in, and then we're going to go work that sprocket on. All right, I got that key in there. Let's see if we can get the sprocket to walk over. A couple of lip taps. The shaft back up in the axle, in the bearing rather. There she goes. A little gooey, but it's going. Battery went dead on me there. Got new battery in you. So let's go get that bearing together on that side. Let's go zap that back together. And we have a pin to put back in. Let's shift that out of our way. us a little bit more room. So you can tap it in with a brass to get it started. Let's flip it over. Generally, one side's mushroomed over and one side's pretty good. About 50-50. Yeah, a little more. That's good. So the transmission's back together. When I was putting it together, it looked like it was missing a bushing on this side, or I dropped it and did not see it, but I don't think so. When I first commented earlier, I said it was missing a nut on this bearing. I have a feeling somebody was in from this side. When they were in on that side, they lost that bushing. So I made a new one up, got rid of the play. It should have just a little bit of side to side, which it does. Now I'm just in the process of cleaning it up some. I want to make sure that there's no fingerprints on that thing to drive this scuff a little bit. Make sure there's no fingerprints on that, no oil, no grease. They are definitely an area that wants to be dry. Same like on your car, you don't want oil on your clutch. So the same thing holds true here. But the one area you do kind of want to have some lube is on where the disc slides back and forth, which is that area right in there. So I'm going to take a few minutes and put a bunch on that. I'm going to flip it the other direction, the back side of it. Get this side. Yeah, a little more. Because I have a tendency to rust up. So that should be good for inside there. We could probably look at the trans. The way that it works is right dead center is neutral. You see this sliding from side to side. So right about there should be neutral, should be almost dead center, which it is. That's top gear. Should be almost over to one side, which it is. Reverse first gear should be just slightly off of center. And second gear reverse, you a little bit more off center. And we could adjust that if we need to. But that should have stayed in place. There shouldn't be a reason for that, but you never know. As far as drive, the distance when you pull the clutch in could be changed because we cut this disc down a little bit, so it's going to be off a little bit. But I would say we're pretty good. We're grabbing about a third of the way down on the handle, and that disc is going to wear more over time. So I'd rather leave it a little on the tall side than on the short side, because as it starts to burn down, the lever will still be within adjustment. One thing you just want to make sure is that disc and that plate, when you're not on the lever, is touching in any way. And I want to say we have about 3/8 of a gap in between there, so we're good. So I'm going to go put the cover back on here. I'm going to lube some points on here that need to be. The axles need to be cleaned up and lubed also, so that the rust does not continue, so you can get the rims off in the future. Let's go clean up those axles a little bit. Get some lube behind here. This is a very dry point right there. It's almost a a brass on steel bushing, I believe. Might even be steel on steel. That's better. And with where the wheels go, we'll just do more of the same that we did. And that should ensure in the future, when we go to take it apart, that they'll be able to come apart. Another year or two more on that other one, that when we took it apart, you're going to have a hell of a time. You're going to end up being the old heat and beat method, you know? They can go back on. And get the clip in that. One thing I want to show, I was putting these wheels back on, is on the left-hand side tire, there's only one hole to put the pin in, but on the right-hand side, there is two holes, and basically what it is an inner and then an outer. The outer, if you were to put that one on there, it makes it so the tractor, the snowblower can turn real easy, but it's really only one-wheel drive. That wheel is just kind of free floating. But if you have an area where you're doing a bunch of turns and you don't need much traction, that's what that's for. Most of the time, you're gonna run that inner hole, and then it's locked. Now it's a positive. All right, you ready? Little melted snowman. I'll get it with my clean hand. Easy goner. Shout out to my neighbor. Thanks, Carrie. The vice grip's off. Fire her up. See how she does. Good to me. A lot easier putting it on when you're not pushing. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Later. They're running scared now.